Hello, I'm James of Pistils and Pollen, and today I'm here with my friend Lorraine in the pollinator beds of our local community garden here in Chicago. I have just had the wonderful opportunity to take a tour around these beds with Lorraine and sort of take a look at what's in season right now. But I wanted to just pick your brain a little bit and hear a little bit about your story and how long you've been doing this, and maybe a little bit about the history of these beds. I mean, you were a part of making this a reality here in Chicago, right?
Native plants have long been an interest of mine, mostly because having grown up with an Italian-American father who all Italian-American men garden, we did a lot of just experimentation in our yard. We had a cold compost pile. And so we would throw things, kitchen scraps in there, and sometimes the most beautiful things would come up. Right. So we used to go for walks, and we found prairie flowers. Just my father would point them out to me. So when I was able to have my own garden as an adult, I put in vegetables, of course, but the element that brings the whole world into it is flowers, especially native flowers, because then they bring in your tie with the small wildlife that helps us thrive as human beings because they pollinate our gardens. And once you become aware of that, it's hard to resist. Mm-hmm. And I think you see that yourself, that plant life brings such a degree of depth to our lives that it's really hard to resist it.
Yeah, especially in an urban environment like Chicago, right? I mean, where there's so much concrete, there's so much building and sort of human-created environments, so that when you come across nature or flowers, especially native wildlife, right? It seems especially beautiful, right?
Yes, and I live in a high-rise, so I have I have a lot of light, so I can bring in houseplants, but houseplants are not the real world.
It's a little different,
and
right?
so many of them are not native. You don't bring native
You're bringing
plants,
the
and
tropics.
they don't thrive, right?
Yeah.
So finding these beds that were unattended, they were Park District property, but the staffing at the Park District has unfortunately taken such a loss, such a hit, that they welcomed the opportunity to have someone step in as a volunteer.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of work, because this bed, the St. John's wort, those two shrubs were probably, and the Siberian iris, were the only original plantings here that that had unpruned, unmaintained. They had managed to survive, not thrive.
Yeah.
And in the other bed, it was pretty much a sapling tree bed. Here, too, a lot of sapling trees. And you can't get those things out. You really have to dig deep. So there was year-round, even coming out when I could tolerate the cold, and work on these beds to get them down to a level that it was not all weed seed coming up. And then planting. And the first milkweed I put in was obtained from a grower, and it was no more than 4 or 5 inches tall.
Okay.
And it already had eggs on it.
Okay.
So it was amazing to start the bed anew with these milkweed plants that had eggs, and why not go from there? So
milkweed were a part of the very first plantings that you did in this about 8 years ago. Is that right?
Yes, and that was the whole point of it, to support pollinators, and monarchs being one of the most iconic migrating pollinators. That had to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of other butterflies will find host plants here, even if it's not the primary host plant. The borage is actually a lesser host plant for the Vanessa cardui, which is the painted lady.
Okay.
It has an amazing black caterpillar that when I saw it, I thought, what on earth is infesting this plant? And there were these,
you didn't even know.
I had to look it up, because I don't think there was even there weren't a lot of plant apps that long ago. Well, to me, it's not long ago, but 8 years ago, you didn't have a lot of plant apps.
Right.
And they would wrap themselves into the leaf. So they would just curl the leaf around them.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that you have taken an interest in this and can expand upon what it means to have this space.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I've only been, this is what I think my second or I think my second season here in the pollinator beds working alongside you. And I have just been having so much
Yes,
fun
yes.
learning about or reacquainting myself with all these native plants, because as you know, I'm much more familiar with the tropicals that we
Right, the
bring
house
in,
stuff, right.
But I am a native son to the Midwest.
Oh,
I've
yes,
been
that's
born
a
and
wonderful
raised
way
in
of putting
yeah,
it.
the Midwest, and so I have sort of been familiar with a lot of these plants on school vacations when I go out and you see acres of prairie, right?
Yes.
So to see them here in this urban environment is just a joy, and to be able to just be out here working as we've done on a random Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon and have folks walk by and little kids stop and ask, or what is that, or why are they digging in the dirt? I mean, that's been one of the most,
why are they digging?
Those encounters have been some of the most interesting and fun for me, and I'm sure you've had a few of your own over the years.
Well, I'd say in the 8 years that I've been doing this with the different kinds of people who join the gardens and the crews, you have been the most passionate. Yeah, people will come out and they will say, well, as a part of the garden, I want to participate in the garden and I'll help you water or I'll help you weed. That isn't what makes these thrive. It's the people who have the passion to spend time looking at them and creating this web of life here. Yeah. And showing me also in terms of landscape what works.
Yeah.
Because we want some flowers, the yellow attracts the bees and the purple attracts the butterflies. So there are different ways of landscaping, even a small bed like this that I turn to you, because you recommended the sawtooth sunflowers as a plant in this area here. So when we get the rest of the Siberian iris out, that's where
we're gonna add some in.
You're going to have sawtooth sunflowers. They're just gorgeous.
Yeah.
And the reason we have this Siberian iris, as I said, the Park District had it in there, but it's a problem of the plant that if it goes to seed, like trees have mast years, and I think some plants may have mast years where they just produce prolific amounts of seed. And if you don't pull that seed, if it doesn't get pulled from the plant by pollinators or people, it just kills the plant.
Yeah.
So the plant's, the green part is there, but it has not flowered in 12 years.
Yeah.
Because I asked the Park District, it hasn't flowered. So I made a promise to the person that I would not throw out anything. So I've since broken that promise because she's long gone.
Okay.
But we have pulled things and put them back into Park District bare spots.
So is it fair to say that the garden, in a sense, the pollinator beds are sort of a seed habitat for the rest of the park, and hopefully it continues to grow and expand?
Yes, and it's a seed habitat for people like you, I mean, who take up the seed of the ecology, and plant life and all of that. But, the seed has everything that the plant needs, and if you put a nice big thick seed like a bean seed in a plastic cup and watch it split open, you can see the first leaves, the roots. You can see everything in that seed. So seeds are so critical even when they're planted in us as ideas.
I think so you would then say, or you would agree with me then, that in some respect it's not just the biological seed or the natural seed, but these gardens are, in a sense, a seed of hope for what cities can be in their best iteration.
Yes.
Community interaction, neighbors working alongside each other to make the city a more beautiful, thriving place for not just each other, but pollinators and birds and nature as well.
We have, I can tell the difference between a male and a female butterfly, and I feel very personally attached to them when I see a female sitting on the blazing star for 30 minutes. She's nectaring, she'll fly around, she'll come back and nectar again. And you can't see the ovipositor actually lay the egg, but she's doing it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. We're standing up and down screaming silently.
Do you think that love and that passion that you have for the butterflies and the plants that are here is translatable in any way to folks who are?
Well, let me tell you something. I recently came upon this thought that about foregoing the greed of unconditional love. That when we give time and effort, there's no question of what you get. You don't have to call it anything. It just such a existential moment. You don't have to call it love. You don't have to call it passion. That's what I like about it. So does that answer?
Yeah.
That
Well,
question?
I mean, do you think that folks, when they walk by, it matters that they see their neighbors engaged in caring for the local park and these little plots of land that would otherwise just be full of weeds and
Well,
dirt?
honestly, James, I can be quite cynical there. Lots of people walk by on their way to the beach, on their way down to the
Yeah, it's a busy spot.
Right, it's a busy spot. They leave a lot of trash here. They're always very often inebriated. So not everybody who walks by here is even aware that we're here.
Yeah.
But those who are make an impact. They make them, they make it clear that this is important to them. And it doesn't have to be throngs of people. And probably better for us if it isn't, because I used to stop families when they walked by to show them the caterpillars. And then one year we had a guy come back with his son and with a plastic bag collecting 5 caterpillars. And one of our gardeners happened to walk by and said, "Excuse me, do you understand what this is and what you're doing?" And he said, "You can just keep walking.
Gosh, yeah.
And so she just sat down for a while until he understood that she wasn't going to be leaving. And then she was observing him. So I no longer point out eggs or caterpillars to people. It's just a shame, but it's part of citizen science. You do not interact. If I see, I have not witnessed it, but if I see something attacking a caterpillar, I can't.
Yeah,
it's
you
citizen
leave
science.
Let nature take its course, if you will. You mentioned the citizen science component, and these beds are a part of an ongoing research project, right? Could you say a little bit more about that?
Well, the Field Museum undertook a study of the monarch population. We collected data once a week of how many milkweed plants we monitor, how many eggs we found, and how many of the 5 different instars, that is, periods of larval growth that we would identify, and how many. So it was a science project in every sense of the word, recognizing the eggs and the different instars and reporting those as those levels. So that was a 2-year period for me, and there were a lot of webinars. So a lot more science went into it than
on the back end. But correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I've been out here with you as you are sort of evaluating each milkweed plant, looking for those eggs, looking and counting them, and contributing to the data collection for that project. Is that right?
Right. And you start at the bottom of the plant, and even though the milkweed plant will shoot up several stems, we have to count above the ground. Each stem is a separate plant.
Yeah.
So right now I have 25 plants over there, and that's not even counting the ones that have jumped out of the bed.
Yeah.
I don't really report what I monitor there.
Yeah.
But of course I do. So you start at the bottom, and the eggs are always laid on the underside of a leaf. It's anti-predation, and they will eat the egg and chew through the leaf, and then just find their way around the milkweed.
Yeah.
So it's the science part of it is a little more exacting.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me that overview of both the scientific component, the community component. I know I could just speak from my own personal experience that I've had so much fun working alongside you the last couple of years, and I hope you're not going anywhere anytime soon, because neither am I. So maybe together we can continue to watch these beds.
Well, we have a work day tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. So we will be out here in the sun. We're shaded right now, but we'll be in the sun working most of the time.
Because this bed hasn't been watered.
Yeah. We'll give it some good loving
Yes,
care.
because the roots need the hydration.
Yeah.
So.